y'all, welcome to a reading vlog. So as you can see from the title of this reading vlog, I am going to be reading books that were chosen for me by Bethany over at Beautifully Bookish Bethany. Bethany originally did this style of video with Mara, and she was asking people who else would they like to see her swap TBRs with, and a lot of people were saying that they wanted to see us swap TBRs. So we went ahead and we decided to do the thing. So I have a box here that was sent to me from Bethany. I only opened up the top to make sure that this was the box because I had other packages that came in as well. So I only know the first book on top that she's chosen for me. So the first one I automatically knew, which was Spoiler Alert by Olivia Dade. This is one that everybody has been talking about that Bethany really loved. She said that the fat rep was amazing in it. So I'm definitely excited for this. Oh, these are the slips. These are the Amazon slips. Hold on. So let me maybe sort these out and see. Okay, yeah. Okay. So this one says here, I mean, are you really surprised? I'm not surprised that Bethany included this one. Read something fun with great fat rep. Okay, so Bethany also knows that I read a lot of hard-hitting books, and she was like, she wanted to give me some stuff that's a little bit lighter to read. So I'm really excited to read this one. I believe it takes place at like, or deals with a Renaissance fair. I don't really know the particulars of these, and I kind of want to go into some of these blind. And of course, I'll be updating y'all as I go along and talk about these books. So the first one that I have from her is Spoiler Alert. Okay, so I just saw the next one. So she got me a copy of All Systems Red by Martha Wells, and this is the first book in the Murderbot Diary series, which is, okay, so this one says, you wanted to read more sci-fi, so here's a lovable, snarky AI. Okay, I've been telling Bethany like I really want to get into more science fiction. Okay, like I'm excited. I've heard great things about this, y'all. Like everybody talks about the Murderbot series, and this is the first one in the series, and I just have not. Oh, I'm so excited. I'm so excited for this one. I've read science fiction before, but I have not really explored the genre a lot. So y'all know that I read, what's the name of the book that I read? Escaping Exodus this year. And I really did end up enjoying Escaping Exodus. So, you know, I was like, does anybody have any sci-fi recommendations? I think I asked that on Twitter, and Bethany and I have been talking about that for a minute. So that's good. And this last one, so I've seen this cover, but I do not know anything about this book. And this is In the Dream House, a memoir by Carmen Maria Machado, which this must be the one that is a hard hitting book. So let's see what the synopsis says. So this one's nonfiction. It says, In the Dream House is Carmen Maria Machado's account of a relationship gone bad, and a bold dissection of the mechanisms and cultural representations of psychological abuse. Machado traces the full arc of a harrowing relationship with a charismatic but volatile woman and struggles to make sense of how what happened to her shaped the person she was becoming. Okay, so this is going to be a very hard book for me to read. Yes, here's your one hard-hitting book, but it's stunningly written with an experimental style. These are the 3 books that I have so far. When I pick up the 4th one, I will definitely do a check-in to let you all know what that 4th book is going to be. But these are the 3, and I'm not going to be marking these as currently reading on Goodreads. That way y'all don't even know that I'm reading these books. It'll come as a surprise whenever you see this vlog. And we definitely are trying to get these up before December ends, because we'll talk about these books in our wrap up. So yes, all right y'all, that is it. When I start and make progress, I will do a check-in. Hey y'all, so I'm doing a quick check-in. So from the last point, I have started in the dream house and I have cried twice, and I'm only like 16 pages into that. So I figured that that one is actually going to take me a little bit longer to read. So I'm going to go ahead and start listening to, oh goodness gracious, what is the one about Olivia Dade? I can't believe I'm sitting here and I'm forgetting the title of the book. Anyway, we're actually headed to the park to have lunch because we needed to get out of the house. So I figured while we're at the park and, you know, we're moving around and stuff like that and eating lunch, I can go ahead and listen to the Olivia Dade book. But yeah, so I did not realize that in a dream house is a look at how abuse affects queer relationships, and it is so poetic. Oh my gosh, it's so poetic, and there's so many elements of it that I relate to just from my own personal experience, and it's a tough one, but I think that I'm really going to appreciate it. And it just, so many metaphors that I completely understand. Like there was one section where the author talks about this two-part feeling that you have about yourself, where there's you and then there's I, and you're the same person, but in an abusive relationship, it's like you become two different people, the person you were before and the person you are in that situation. And definitely felt all of that energy. I'm excited to continue it, but for right now, while we're at the park, I'm going to listen to the Olivia Dade book. And why I can't remember the name of it, who knows? Who knows? Hey y'all, so I wanted to do a quick check-in. I'm sorry for the lighting. It's late at night, it's almost 12:30, and I really should be going to bed because I do have to get up in the morning, but I am still reading in the dream house. I decided that I wanted to get to at least page 50 before the night is over with, and boy, Bethany picked a hard-hitting one, and she told me I was going to get one hard-hitting one, but this one is really good. It is definitely looking at Machado's experience, just life experiences and how those situations were handled. And I really love that there are bits and pieces of this one that are written in second person, and some parts of this are hard to read. There are sections that remind me so much of some things that I have experienced, but I really wanted to check in because I got to this quote that almost brought me to tears again. Like I haven't already cried twice. And this one says, sometimes your tongue is removed, sometimes you steal it of your own accord, sometimes you live, sometimes you die, sometimes you have a name, sometimes you are named for what, not who you are. The story always looks a little different depending on who is telling it. And that is the truth. My goodness, that is the truth. So I'm going to continue to read this until I get to page 50. I am listening to the book by Olivia Dade, which is, spoiler alert, I couldn't remember the name of that the other day for some reason. I have, I think, maybe like 5 hours left of the audiobook. I could be an hour off on that, give or take. So yeah, I'm going to read 50 pages of this, and then tomorrow I will be listening more to spoiler alert, and I'll do another check-in. Hey y'all, doing a check-in. I know it looks like I am wearing the same jacket, but it's a jacket, so you know, if you see previous clips with the jacket, it's because it's my go-to jacket when it gets chilly outside. But I just wanted to do a quick check-in. I am still reading Spoiler Alert by Olivia Dade. I only have about 3 hours left of this one, so I'm anticipating actually finishing this one today. It is super cute, and Bethany, great choice, of course, because I believe we're always both on the hunt for good fat rep plus size rep, and this one definitely is doing a good job. I feel like our heroine is she's not struggling with her weight, which I enjoy. Like, she's accepted her weight, and she is a huge advocate for people being mindful, and like even in fan fiction, of not being fat phobic and being mindful of how, you know, you treat characters that may be fat, and how always fat characters are aligned with being evil and stuff, which I've seen in other marginalized groups as well. So very, very interesting. I am enjoying it. I will have more to say once I finish it. I'll do a little bit more of analysis, or maybe after like I listen to an hour and a half more of it. But I am making a run to the bank, and it's my lunch break, so yeah, I'll check in later. All right, y'all, so I haven't done a check-in in a while, which is absolutely bonkers because I just haven't done a check-in in a while, and it's the week of Christmas. And I am determined to go through and finish the books that I need to finish for this vlog. So I did end up finishing Spoiler Alert by Olivia Dade, which was so good. It was really, really good. I think I'm going to end up giving this one a 4.5 stars. I think that this is the fat rep that I've been looking for. So Bethany did a great job, and I'm not surprised because I think we have similar expectations, and we do have similar reading tastes in general, but this was great. I really, really did end up enjoying this one, and I don't know why I said when I was reading this one that I thought it was like a Renaissance fair. It's definitely not a Renaissance fair. It includes a fandom element that I think I wasn't really anticipating, that I didn't know that I was going to end up enjoying this fandom element. And you know, I think that she definitely had some insecurities, which is understandable in terms of like dating and getting people's feelings for like how you anticipate them treating you, which it didn't bother me. I thought that maybe like an element like that would bother me, where like it almost felt like she was insecure, but she wasn't necessarily insecure. I think the way that he worded some things was kind of off-putting, because he didn't realize how he was coming off in some, and I'm going to use an example because it's not a spoiler, just like asking her, like, did she want to work out in the morning? It's like, you know, or let's go to this breakfast place, they serve hard-boiled eggs and oatmeal, and it's just one of those things where you're like, I mean, come on, like, what are you trying to say? And I think that's what I got out of that experience, was like, what are you trying to say to me right now about myself? Like, you're saying like I don't eat well, you're saying that I need to work out, and I know some people interpret that as an insecurity, but I don't interpret that as an insecurity. I interpret that as like, you know, really trying to figure out like, what are your intentions, because people in the past who have done this have not had good intentions, and that's how I kind of took it. But I thought that it was well written. I thought that April just had this confidence about her that I really respected, and you know, I think that Marcus does some stuff that he shouldn't do, which is one of those things where it's like, bro, like, why did you do what you did? Like, this could have all been so simple. And he just didn't do what he should have done. This also, like I said, includes that fandom element, which I don't think I've read a book that specifically has a fandom in it, and fandom in terms of like fanfic and cosplay, and I actually really ended up enjoying that. I really like the fandom cosplay stuff, and I love that there was this conversation about how cosplay has been rather fat phobic, and even in the fan fiction aspect of her writing this book, she talks about like how fan fiction has been fat phobic and how people don't realize that when they're writing fan fiction, they're often associating. And see, this was what was crazy, because I had often heard, and I may have talked about this in a previous clip, like I had often heard about like how people use marginalized groups in stories and they villainize them, and it may not even be something that's intentional. It could be a subconscious thing that happens. And in this, she talks about how you can see the aspects of people being villainized that are, you know, fat. And she told people like, just be mindful of that, like when you're writing fan fiction. And I love that that specifically was addressed. I love that she just was, oh, she was such a strong character, y'all. Like she was such a strong character, even in her moments of like despair. I think that April was just absolutely marvelous. And I think that she wasn't willing to put up with crap or being treated badly, especially because she had spent so many years coming into her own and being accepting of her body, and she wasn't gonna let any man come through and destroy that for her. And okay, like, and no matter who you love or who your partner is, like when you get to a point in your life where you're confident in yourself, and specifically to like body image, when things are constantly pushed out to you, telling you that you have no place in society, that you're not good enough because of your shape and your size, I think that she did a great job in saying like, hey, hold up, like I have built up this level of confidence and self-love, and I don't care who you are. And in that mindset, like she didn't care if that Marcus was a star. It didn't matter to her. She was like, I'm not about to date you just because you're a quote-unquote star if you don't have any respect. So this was good, y'all. If you have not read, spoiler alert, I highly recommend it. So I am still reading In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado, and I am going to focus on this one specifically tonight. I think this is going to be the one that I'm going to take a couple hours to read tonight, because of the fact that I know that I'm moving slower with this one, and the experimental writing of this one is very interesting. I think that Machado moves back and forth between a first person and second person narrative, which for me is what's so hard about this book, is that I have certain triggers that are aligning with this book right now. So when she talks in second person, for me it gets kind of tough. And it's not that I'm not enjoying the book, and I don't know necessarily if this is a book that you enjoy, but you appreciate Machado telling her story and putting it out there, the conversations that specifically need to happen about abuse within queer relationships. But I know that when she specifically uses you, it takes me to a different level of personal experience. So this one, I know that this is probably going to be the last one that I finish, because I'm moving so slow with this one, because I have to take my time with it. But I do appreciate what is being done with this. I do appreciate how we are starting to see now this gradual, it was like almost like lifting her partner up on a pedestal, and then we're starting to see now this gradual fading into what I like to say is when you move out of the honeymoon stage and you start to see flickers of what that individual's true personality is like. And it's probably the weirdest thing to experience. From my own experience, it's very strange to see that happen, and it ends up creating a lot of situations in which gaslighting starts to happen, because you see stuff where you're like, this isn't right, like this is crazy, and then your partner or significant other starts to gaslight you into believing that you're the one that's kind of like off your rocker and they're not. And so continue to take my time with it and appreciate it. And I think that I'm gonna end up saving I think I'm going to save All Systems Red for last, because this is one that I'm really, really excited about because I wanted to read more science fiction. But I don't think I did a clip of me talking about that. This was the 4th book that came in. This is The Heiress Effect by Courtney Milan. This is book 2 in the Brother Sinister series, which Bethany told me I don't need to read the series in order, but once I finish it, I do have the other books in on my Kindle checked out from the library right now. But Courtney Milan is a historical romance writer. I believe she writes primarily historical, although I believe she may have done other stuff. I'm not sure, but I am familiar with Courtney Milan. I just have not read anything by Courtney Milan, and this is a historical, and I'm excited for it because I just finished up another historical, and I'm about to finish up another historical, and I think I'm going to definitely enjoy this because I'm currently on a historical kick. Like, don't know why, but I just am. So I have some other stuff that I need to get done. I actually am headed to the bookstore after I post my video for today. So I will probably put in some B-roll footage of me going to the bookstore, but I will check in tonight after I've read a little bit more of In the Dream House. So see you later. So, showing you what I got. I ended up picking up our dining table, and then Way of the House Husband, The Way of the House Husband, Volume 2. I thought it wasn't out yet. I thought it didn't come out till next year. And then If I Could Reach You, which was a random pickup that I just decided to get. And then Night of the Ice, because I've heard Shay talk about this one. I actually have heard Shay talk about that one, and then also our dining table. So I just got 4 volumes of manga because I'm on a manga kick. My haul this month is going to be like solely manga, which is cool, I guess, to some degree, to some level. But yeah, so that's it. I'm gonna go do some other stuff, and then I'll check in with my reading progress later. Hey y'all, so I wanted to do a quick check-in. It's late and I am up reading In the Dream House, which I don't think I've done an update in a minute on this one. But there are 2 specific sections that I am finding very interesting and valuable. This definitely is not only about domestic violence, but domestic violence in a queer relationship, which I'm sure I have discussed. But by the time you get about halfway to the book, there's this discussion about the imagery of domestic violence, and specifically looking at, for example, the fact that it is often categorized or looked at in the framework of heterosexual relationships, with typically the abuser being a man and the victim being a woman, and that woman being white, and that being white and being in a heterosexual relationship changes the game when you start looking outside of those categorizations. And it it's very fascinating thinking about how people, first of all, didn't even look at the ability for women to be in a relationship historically, that it just doesn't work, that it couldn't possibly work. So that has basically negated the fact too that abuse can even happen between two women that are in a relationship. And I think what we're seeing here essentially is our narrator, which is of course Machado, is kind of historically looking at why it takes so long for these stories to come about, or why people don't even tell their stories. And then there was also a section too in which she describes how she doesn't identify herself as being a battered woman, but clearly there is this relationship to abuse. And she's saying that a lot of times judicial systems only look at abuse in terms of physical. And it's harmful because you can be in an abusive relationship and not endure any type of physical harm when you don't take into consideration things like psychological or emotional, financial. Then what ends up happening is that you leave a whole population of women out and you're doing them an injustice. So I just wanted to make a notation of that because I find that very interesting, and just kind of even looking at like my own experience and seeing what it would have been like had I not been black. I can only imagine what a situation is like when you are not only not white, but you are in a queer relationship. That just is so many different layers in which the justice system does not work in your favor, and people don't believe that you can end up in an abusive relationship in a non-heterosexual relationship. So very interesting. I'm gonna keep reading and I will do another update. Hey y'all, this is probably really loud. So we're actually prepping for bath time, and I know it's awkward time to do a check-in, but busy mama. So I am gonna go ahead and start. It's hot. It's too hot for book. I'm gonna go ahead and start All Systems Red by Martha Wells, because my library has the audiobook on Booktuber, so I'm going to listen to it that way, and I figured this would just be the next one that I would start. The audiobook is only like 3 hours, so I'm going to go ahead and listen to that and see how I feel. I'm going into it blind. I don't know anything about it whatsoever, which is a cool thing, and I will do a check-in when I've made some progress on it. Hey y'all, just wanted to do a quick check-in. So I just finished in the dream house, and clearly This definitely was a tough read for me personally, but I think this was a good insight to the conversation about domestic abuse and violence in queer relationships, and how there is this belief that it can't exist and that it doesn't happen. And this is very much so, of course, a memoir, Machado's experience being in a abusive relationship herself. And there were just a lot of points of this that I really enjoyed, a lot of conversation pieces that she kind of brought to the table in terms of, even after getting out the relationship, how difficult it was for her, for people to even believe her. People asking, like, I mean, is two women together, is that even a possibility? We're trying to say things like domestic abuse in queer relationships doesn't exist. And one part that really stood out to me in the end was the fact that she talked about how she had no evidence, because it never was a relationship that was grossly physical, meaning that there was like proof that she could take pictures with, or proof that she could go to the police with. And I think that is a bigger conversation about domestic violence on a whole, where we feel like in order for abuse to occur within a partnership, it must be physical, and that's not always true. And I believe I talked about this in another clip, but I really like that she brought to the table that abuse is abuse, and you have to recognize it in its different forms, and that it being physical, sorry y'all, I'm so congested, but it being physical is not the only way that it exists. And I think that when we continue to think that way, we leave out tons and tons of stories. And I'm surprised that Machado was saying that in her research about domestic violence, queer relationships, she wasn't really finding a lot of other people who identified in different ways outside of being lesbians. Like, there wasn't a lot of literature in other ways, and that the oldest work that she found was the year that she was born. So there's not a lot of conversations about that. And I think it has a lot to do with what Machado was saying about the fact that when you have a marginalized group that is fighting to be seen and heard and just fighting for the human rights, they feel as though they must exist in this perfect lens, and that's not true. And I find that to be interesting, because I think that that is true. I think that we see a lot of things that go underrepresented or misrepresented or underreported in a lot of communities. And I think Machado was saying this, especially like abuse in queer communities, because there's this need to be perfect, that you can't do anything wrong, or wrong things don't happen, or queer people don't treat other queer people badly. And, you know, there's a specific line in this book where she said, queer people can fail each other too. And it's that, I think that perspective of understanding and realizing that queer people are human, and even in fighting for your rights to have things, you just want to be like everyone else, or you're saying that you're just like everyone else. You show your humanity, and you show your humanity to a level that is almost disappointing to other people in your community or people outside your community. She was saying that she was so heartbroken when the first married couple, I believe in Massachusetts, I think it was a lesbian couple that got married, where they got divorced. And how that was such an irony for her, because people get divorced all the time. But the fact that it happened in the queer community, where we have this misconception that everyone must be perfect, that it was heartbreaking or it was disappointing when it's a norm of society at large. So this was just generally just a very, very good book. Definitely a 5-star read for me. I had a serious emotional connection to this. While I have not experienced some things in here in terms of the intersectionality of being a woman and being queer and being in an abusive situation, I have been in a situation, but it was from the standpoint of a heterosexual relationship. But I understand the intersectionality of marginalizations that occur with being Black and being a woman and being in a situation. And it just, there were a lot of points in which I cried, a lot of points where I like tabbed, where I'm like, I'm still in that process of healing myself. So yeah, definitely Bethany did so good with this one. So good. 5-star read. So good. Probably gonna end up making it on my top books of 2020, which I'm so glad I haven't done that final list yet. So It's actually only like today and tomorrow, like, that I need to finish this vlog. So I'm doing some serious reading right now because I got a little bit behind. But I did end up starting The Heiress Effect by Courtney Milan, and this is hilarious. So The Heiress Effect is about a woman by the name of Jane who has this huge fortune, and she doesn't want to get married because she's trying to protect her sister because they live with this really, really awful uncle who is not necessarily mean to her sister, but she knows that she needs to be there to protect her sister. So she does everything intentionally, like, to not get married, and she is grossly rude for terms of like society in her place as a woman in society. She has no filter. She does it purposefully. Like, she knows that she's doing this stuff on purpose. She tries to offend people, and she tries to put herself into a situation in society where no one wants to marry her because she doesn't want to get married, and she's trying to hold off until her sister turns 21. And then she meets Oliver Marshall, who is like not intimidated by her quirkiness, and I think this is going to be good. So I'm enjoying it so far. This is my first Courtney Milan book, and I am still also listening on audio to All Systems Red. So I'm actually going to start the editing process. I have some clips that I need to edit and get through for this vlog, and then I'm gonna pick those two up, and I will update you after that. Good morning. It is literally like first thing this morning, and I hope you guys are gonna be able to hear me because of this clip. But I just wanted to do a really quick update. I don't want to show the baby's face. It's so messy right now. She's got sleep and all types of stuff all over her face. But I just wanted to do a quick update in which I wanted to tell you that I am over 50% into the Heiress Effect, and I'm really enjoying it. So the plan is, because this vlog goes up tomorrow, so the plan is to finish that one and to finish All Systems Red today. So I think I can do it. This vlog goes up at 2 o'clock tomorrow, so now it's like down to the crunch time. But I'm a quick reader, so I just want to let you know that I am enjoying it, and that I will do another check-in soon. Hey y'all, so I am here to do the final clip. Yes, I still have my Christmas tree in the background. I'm gonna take it down tomorrow. Anyway, so as I said in my last clip, today was crunch time, and of course I made my crunch time. So I finished my last two books, which were The Heiress Effect by Courtney Milan and All Systems Red by Martha Wells. Go ahead and start with The Heiress Effect. So I talked a little bit about what this book was about. I think I'm gonna give this one 3.5 stars. So I think I loved the sense of humor and the bantering that really occurred between Jane and Oliver, but I wasn't a huge fan of Oliver, although I completely get where he was coming from, especially because, as Courtney Milan actually says in the back of the book, the timing of the story parallels the history of the Reform Act of 1867, which extended the franchise to many but not all working class men in 1867, and that plays a big role in why Oliver does what he does. But I think I wasn't invested in their romance. Like, I had no attachments to it. And I think that Courtney Milan focuses so much on the characterizations of the quote-unquote players in her book so much that I think we lose kind of the humanity of them. I know that probably doesn't make sense, but for me it was a huge attachment. Like the parts of the puzzle were there, like the pieces of the puzzle were there, but they weren't put together in the way that I wanted them to be put together. And then there were aspects of this book, like I wanted to know more about her sister's romance, like how that all worked together. I think that there was great diversity. I also want to kind of touch on the fact that I know that I've seen some people talk about the fact that the heroine is plus size, but I feel like it didn't really make a difference in this story at all. Like there just was maybe two mentions or a few mentions of her being plus size. And I'm not saying that it has to be this whole journey or she has to be insecure or anything like that. But I think it was just one of those characteristics where it just either way, like it wouldn't have made a difference or mattered to the story overall. And I think that could have been an interesting point for Courtney Milan to kind of build off of. And then of course we're dealing with a plus size heroine, and on the cover, you know, it's just one of those things. So I think I'm interested in continuing the rest of the series. I think that the writing was done really well. I just did not enjoy the characters as much as I thought I was going to enjoy the characters. I wasn't as invested in the romance as I wanted to be invested in the romance, and Oliver just like he was good, but it was just like one of those situations where I just wanted a little bit more. I think I'm not sure. I think I'm still trying to really honestly like grab my feelings about this, because I think what I'm feeling and how I'm explaining it, and I'm sorry y'all, I think I'm actually like in the middle of an allergic reaction, because like my forehead's on fire and my eyes are itching. Okay, so not exactly sure what I touched or what I ate, but that's beside the point. I think I'm just trying to explain why I didn't really have an attachment to the characters and why I wasn't super invested in them. Like I said, I think all of the pieces of the puzzle were there, but they didn't fit together for me. And I don't know whether I felt like Courtney Milan was trying to do so much with the characters to the point that they just didn't feel realistic, or what it was, but there was this disconnect between me and the characters. So that created an issue with me, like being invested in them as people and caring about the romance in general. Although I did enjoy the dynamic between Jane and her sister Emily. That was a piece that I really liked, because everything that Jane, not even a lot, everything that Jane was doing specifically was for the betterment of her sister and trying to protect her sister and save her sister from this, really honestly, this reckless abuse that her uncle was imposing on her. I mean, some of the things that her uncle was doing because he was trying to take care of her was interesting and wrong. And it has a lot to do with the way that people thought when you had individuals that were impacted or affected by things like epilepsy, and how, you know, I mean, they would call it an affliction, and how they would go about treating that, and how women were treated because of the possibility of having something like epilepsy, and the lengths and the crazy things that her uncle was doing to her in ways of showing that he cared. It was just strange. And Jane really was doing everything, the crazy behavior, the horrible outfits, the outlandish behavior at these huge social events was all in a way to protect her sister by maintaining a viable household for herself, because she was illegitimate. So I think that I really liked watching them and the support that they had for each other, and the relationship that they had, the dynamic that they had, and how loving and supporting they were. That was probably the most enjoyable part for me outside of Emily's romance. I feel like I was more invested in Emily's romance than I was in Jane and Oliver's romance, which I think was very interesting, because they definitely were more so side characters than anything. But I would have loved to see that romance flushed out a little bit more, and I would have loved to see what ended up happening between the two of them. But with, like I said, with Oliver and Jane, it was kind of one of those situations where I was like, I definitely, like I said, I'm gonna give this 3.5 stars, and I am interested in the rest of the series. You don't have to read them, like I said before, one of the clips, you don't have to read them in order. You can read them as standalones, but I'm interested in the rest of the series because I think sometimes in series like this, different couples make you feel different ways. But I do like Courtney Millan's writing, and because her writing is so well done, I was able to fly through the book. This was an easy book to make it through. So yes, 3.5 stars. And the last one that I ended up reading was All Systems Red by Martha Wells. This was another quick read. I think this one is just a little over 150 pages. And this is the first book in the Murderbot Diaries. This is a novella. I think the first 4 books are novellas, and I think this year we actually got a full-length novel in this series. And this focuses on a being that is a part replicated human organic material, and then the other part like robotic. And this individual identifies as a murder bot and has the craziest sense of humor that I have ever come across. I really enjoyed this one. I was not expecting the sarcasm. The first line of this book, y'all, is crazy. I could have become a mass murderer after I hacked my governor module, but then I realized I could access the combined feed of entertainment channels carried on the company's satellites. So this is and I don't even know how to describe Murderbot. But Murderbot essentially likes to be alone. They don't really like being in the presence of the humans that they work for. So they're contracted out, and they have disabled the feed that governs them and basically controls like whether they are able to do certain things or not. And they love consuming entertainment television. And I think that this novella, and I hope when people go into this one, this is not so much, I think, about a huge plot thing going on. There is a plot, of course, to this book. There definitely is a plot to this book, which deals with the fact that there is kind of like I don't want to say sister, but that's the best word that I know how to use. It's like a sister group that is on the same planet as them. So humans are no longer confined to Earth. They can explore different planets, and there's this other group that's supposedly on the other side of the planet, but they've been unable to communicate with them, and they start having issues. They find out that some things have been tampered with, and then they go on this journey to attempt to figure out exactly what has gone wrong. And this is not as dark as I thought it was going to be. This is actually pretty light and humorous. And it brings forth the question of like, what does it mean to be human? Because while the murder bot technically is not a human, I think that it's also important to realize in this situation, like, they have feelings and they have thoughts, they process information, and it's about the treatment and the bonding that happens between Murderbot and the crew that they're actually contracted to work with or work for. And you can see the respect that goes back and forth between the Murderbot and the humans that are working together. Because there was this one specific scene, and I'm trying to figure out how to frame it without giving you spoilers, but I think it's not spoilery, where the Murderbot was called to answer to basically the captain, and they were asked questions about specifically what had been going on and some information that they had received, and they assumed that something was wrong with information. That's what I'm gonna say about that. But when the Murderbot asked, like, can I leave? Like, do you need me? And they were basically like, no, I mean, unless you kind of want to hang out with us, you know, you're kind of free to go as you please. And it was interesting because it was such a striking thing for Murderbot to realize that they wanted possibly to be in the same room and function with them in the room. So it was kind of like they wanted to treat Murderbot as an equal, like as a human being, even though I think it's easy to assume that because they're not technically, like, organic wise completely human, that they still were due that respect. And I think that most of this series is kind of looking at that question of like humanity and what does it mean to be a human. And it was good. It was good. I'm happy that Bethany picked this one out because I really did enjoy it, and it is another great introduction to science fiction. I am excited to pick up the next books in the series, especially the rest of the novellas and then the one that just came out. But I love murder books. They're funny. They're super funny, and probably would be great to have as a friend. The sarcasm and the humor were a plus in this one, so I'm gonna end up giving this one 4 out of 5 stars. Okay, y'all, so let's review really quickly before I end this vlog what exactly I read from Bethany picking my TBR, which Bethany, you did a great job. This was fun. I really enjoyed this. So I read Spoiler Alert by Olivia Dade. I gave this one, I'm gonna think this one is gonna be like a 4.5 read for me. I may have said 4 stars before. I can't remember what it said in that first clip, but this is definitely gonna be 4.5 stars for me. Very good fat rep. Very good story. Definitely one I'm looking forward to rereading in 2021. I also read In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado. 5 freaking stars. 5 stars. This book was so damn good, and I know that I won't be able to reread it soon, but it was so good. One of the most dynamic and interesting memoirs that I have read thus far. We have The Heiress Effect by Courtney Milan, which I gave 3.5 stars. And then, of course, All Systems Red, in the first book in the Murderbot Diaries by Martha Wells, giving this one 4 stars. So, yes, y'all. So, I haven't updated any of these on Goodreads, so y'all had no idea that I was even reading these books. I'm so excited for this vlog to go up tomorrow. And thank goodness that I have edited this whole vlog except this clip, or else I'd be panicking right now. But thank you so much, y'all, for watching. Thank you so much, Bethany, for having me on board to do this project with you. You picked out some great books. Of course, I feel like you know my taste at this point, so it's been fun. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Make sure you check out Bethany's video. I think by the time that my video goes up, she will actually be doing a live version of hers. I won't be able to do a live version of mine. It'll go up at 2, but I won't be premiering it because of the fact that I actually am going to be at work. So it's just going to go live at 2 o'clock EST. So make sure, if you're not watching her premiere right now, that you go and you check it out, because she's going to be reading the books that I gifted her. So yes, absolutely love this. Like I said, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more content from me, make sure you click that subscribe button, hit that bell for notifications. Looking for a way to support my channel, all the links are down below. Looking to follow me on social media, all links are down below as well. And I'll be back with another video soon.